What is going on, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Huddle Within podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in once again to another episode. Lots to get through today. And you know what? Before we start, do subscribe wherever you do get your podcasts. It means the world to me, obviously. The more people that listen to this, the more better, obviously, it is for them to get the latest sporting news all in one, but also able to obviously see this podcast and support the Huddle as well. We're going straight into it. And, woke up this morning with news that Morocco have been crowned the AFCON champions after losing to Senegal 1-0 in extra time. Basically, Senegal will still appeal this. However, it has been stripped away from them. And the reason why it happened was because there was a stoppage time penalty awarded to Morocco host nation, and essentially the Senegalese players pretty much delayed the game for 17 minutes in protest. They got upset, they moved off the pitch, and that sort of was the cause for, I guess, Diaz missing the penalty, which ended up being a miss. And that took them to extra time where Senegal got the victory and were initially crowned World Cup champions. And as of literally today, the day I'm recording, it has been stripped from them. One of the most craziest things that have ever happened in football, and quite corrupt, I must say, quite corrupt. Morocco, the host nation, so that penalty was very questionable. It was a very questionable penalty call, which I think gave the right for a bit of a protest from the Senegalese players, but to walk off the pitch and then after 17 minutes come back, not the best decision to make, but I still don't think it warrants the 3-0 forfeit that Senegal have and crowning Morocco champions. And how, as a Moroccan, can you take that championship and be proud of that? Because you just won it on merit. Like, there's going to be days where there'll be some pub quizzes on, who won the 2026 African Cup of Nations, and it's gonna turn people's heads and be a trick question in a lot of trivias, because it's one of the most craziest things that ever happened in terms of football. Like, actually, a result actually being changed, and it worries me because, when you think about it and you think, they're going to protest the result, it could be cheating. You always know that that's not going to happen. When the result is done, it's done. But now, if they enable this to actually go through and Senegal appeals and it doesn't work and Morocco are crowned champions, then how many times are we going to see this happen? I don't think it's good for any sport or any part of the game. So for this happening, it's quite ludicrous. I have to be honest. It's probably the best word to describe it. Very, very ludicrous. But otherwise, I mean, if you're Moroccan, you probably take it, but it's not the best way to sort of win an African Cup of Nations. Like, you're supposed to earn and win in regular time. But that was the craziest news that came out in that. And then we also had Chelsea given a transfer ban as well. I think that's also getting appealed. From memory, it is a massive fine, 10.75 million, a suspended 1-year transfer ban, which means that it's a suspended sentence. So they should be able to still hit, I guess, transfer. I guess. I'm not sure if that is legit or not, but they've said it hit with a 1-year first-term transfer ban. So it could be a full year, 2-year suspension, and a 9-month academy transfer ban. So they get hit with a pretty hefty amount. And you wonder how City got away with 117 charges. It might mean that Chelsea need to get a lot better lawyers. It hasn't really been a good week for them. They obviously lost to Newcastle away from home. And they also lost 8-2 on aggregate to PSG. So some nightmares happening in Chelsea. How bizarre, by the way, was the huddle that they did at the centre surrounding the ref Portini before the Newcastle game. I guess quite a bit of a, I would say, superstition, sarcastically, because it didn't work out. But yeah, I don't know what's going on with that football club. But in other news, another good football club that's been playing well and pouncing off the results, especially given that Liverpool drew to Tottenham. Tottenham gives them a chance to sort of get out of relegation for now and might start their season again, especially that it was against Anfield. Chelsea losing, obviously. And then United beating Aston Villa, who was also a top 4 candidate and a competitor, have put themselves in commanding position to go play Champions League football next year. And that's going to impact the club massively on a financial scale, but also on a competitive football scale as well. Manchester United in Champions League is what, honestly, I want to see, and what a lot of people probably want to see as well, given that it is one of the biggest clubs in England. It's good signs. It's early. We can't, I guess, put a nail on it and confirm it, but it's looking likely. And what else is looking likely off the record is Arsenal. But before I get to Arsenal, how good is Bruno Fernandes? I think he's player of the season for me. Record in assists, over 100 chances created, and he's been elite for us. And I think if it wasn't for him, it wouldn't be a Champions League football. And if it wasn't for also Casemiro being an unbelievable set piece merchant, we'd be struggling big time. And I really hope he can get another year of Casemiro, or else if not, it's going to be a great way to end his campaign as a Manchester United player. And it's been an honour having him as a player. He's been so important and so awesome for us as well. I'm just thinking about the World Cup this year with Brazil, and having Casemiro and Gabriel for corners is going to be quite overpowered too. So, hopefully Brazil hire a good set piece coach. But otherwise, United have been outperforming Arsenal in set pieces, which is crazy because Arsenal were known as the set piece merchants. And they're comfortably sitting 10 points in front. However, City do have a game in hand. They had the chance to win against West Ham. They didn't, which gave this gap to Arsenal, but they're still got to verse each other. So let's say that City get their game in hand. That puts them over to obviously 7 points. They beat Arsenal, 4 points of difference. Still a title race. Arsenal have an easier schedule, but nevertheless, they still have to play 7 games of football. So anything can happen. The title race is still alive, but we can finally and safely say that Arsenal do have one hand on the trophy, and, they're firing. They have the deepest squad in the Premier League. Their team is looking really good. They're performing really well, and, you can't take this moment away from them, especially given that, they're also performing in the Champions League. They beat Bayern Leverkusen 2-0 as well. So, things are on the up for Arsenal. As for other clubs, obviously Man City losing to Real Madrid. They've had a terrible week. They're also out of Champions League. They'll probably win the Carabao Cup now. They have to win at least one trophy, you'd think. Liverpool have got Galatasaray. They should win that game at Anfield. They are 1-0 down, but they should win that game, in my opinion. I don't see them losing. You've got Atletico Madrid and Tottenham. I expect Atletico to go through unless Tottenham can pull a miracle. Newcastle and Barca, which is going to be probably the most interesting game. I think Barca obviously go through, but hopefully Newcastle can cause an upset. That would be pretty nice. The 1-0 would have been good for them. Now they have a probably steeper hill to climb because 1-0 is still probably not enough in a home game. But now they'll have to probably, try to get at least a 1-0 back to go to extra time, or maybe just try to get a pivot 2-0, but it'll be very hard for them. And then you've got the bye week for Bayern Munich. It's Bayern and Atalanta. They're 6-1 up. They're playing at home. They will most likely go through and then take on Barcelona or Real Madrid. Sorry. So that will be also very exciting and interesting as well. And how's Beta Glimt, the team that I thought were elite, getting done by Sporting 5-0 in the second leg to make it 5-3 on aggregate is quite crazy as well. That ends their dream run, where I thought they could have actually made a pretty decent run going into potentially a semi-final if they were to get on top. But it doesn't look like it's going to be the case. Liverpool, if they win, they'll probably take on PSG. Real Madrid will be taking on Bayern Munich if they win. You've got Newcastle or Barcelona will take on the winner of Atletico and Tottenham. And Arsenal, will take on Sporting. So that's pretty much how the Champions League is looking. And Arsenal have got almost a punch-in guaranteed chance of making a semi-final unless Sporting has something else to do with it, So that is quite crazy. Quite crazy how, we're down to only potentially one Premier League team despite having 5 in the round of 16. That's also incredible. Can Arsenal carry the Premier League to potential Champions League success? They are built for those type of tournaments. Or 2 players. I think Liverpool will get through there. But, Arsenal are built for the tournament, and I think Liverpool definitely needs to have a good Champions League run as well. So, we'll keep in touch with Champions League. We obviously have more Premier League to go as well, with Arsenal sitting comfortably at the top at the moment, unless City have got something else to obviously say about that as well. Just wanted to take a moment to thank you guys for tuning into another episode of the Huddle Within podcast. If you do enjoy episodes like this, or this episode specifically, be sure to leave a comment and a 5-star review wherever you do get your podcasts. It'd be also great if you could like and subscribe wherever you do get your podcasts, so we can continue to show this out to people that see sports exactly the way that you do. But without further ado,
let's get straight back into it.
So we have a little bit of an AFL recap as well as I go into the scores here, just to read them out specifically. We had Carlton only winning by 4 points against Richmond. And if it wasn't for Tom Lynch kicking, was it 2-7? Richmond could have won that game, and that would have been twice in a row that Carlton get done on round one against Richmond. They actually get really lucky here. And Richmond, they put up a good performance, but Carlton got really lucky. And then we had a blowout between Essendon and Hawthorn. Essendon don't seem to have a defence and are going to be pretty rubbish this season. Hawthorn flying. The Doggies are also flying. They pretty much dismantled the shit out of the Giants, and that is not becoming a rivalry anymore. It's been piped up as a rivalry because of the Toby Green Bond situation. They're mates now as well, so that doesn't seem to be an issue, but it doesn't seem that Bulldogs find GWS as an issue either because they smacked them up. You had Geelong coming down from like 6 goals to beat Freo by 10. That was crazy. I couldn't believe Freo lost that. That was massive. And, big for Geelong. I think they needed that victory. Sydney making a statement, taking on the undermanned Brisbane, who I still think will be fine, but, they got blown out there. And then you had the Pies, fucking the Pies, losing to Adelaide by 14 points. Not good enough from us. We're really lacking a tall up there. And, the umpires didn't help us with the 50 rule, but we didn't also help ourselves by adding someone to the mark when there was a free kick paid. And that's something that I think we got to work through. But, the Crows are looking really good. And, they had a statement victory here. This was one of their big games, and they got a good victory on their first round. North Melbourne looked like, first 10 games of a regular season in 2016, North Melbourne, they were flying. Dylan Stevens had a massive game, and, Port looking shocking. North Melbourne, they have a chance to go 2 in a row. They got the Eagles next week. And, if they can build something here, they might potentially be able to stay away from those bottom 2 places. But, positive signs there. I'm not going to jump on that early, but I'm sure a lot of North Melbourne fans will be jumping on that and saying that they're back. I'm not gonna say that yet. And then you have Melbourne against Saints, who won by 13 points. And St Kilda, man, 2 losses in a row with that salary cap being spent and a lot of players coming in is quite disappointing. Van Rooyen, 6 goals, quite solid. The new Pickett, like Letitia Pickett, or man, I fucking botched that name for sure, but he's a baller. Cozzy's elite, and Max Gawn just showed everyone how good of a ruckman he is. And you know what? They played really well. I'll sit there and say St Kilda are in trouble, but the last 2 games they've only lost by a few points. So I think it'll give them time to gel. It's a bit obviously annoying losing to a team like Melbourne, but Melbourne were flying. They had a really good game, and I don't think they'll have a game like that in a long time. They were really, really solid. And then you had Gold Coast, who made quick work of West Coast. But honestly, West Coast, the fact that they lost by, less than 60 points, it's quite commendable. It's a commendable effort. And, they're going to be shit, but they can hold their heads high because Geelong lost to the Gold Coast by a lot more than they did. So, that's a positive sign. But we go on to next week. And, my tippings were really bad. I obviously tipped Brisbane to get it done. I was completely wrong. I tipped, obviously, Collingwood to win and Port to win and Melbourne to win, St Kilda to win, and they all lost. So not good start to my tipping. Not what I wanted. But we start a new week, round 2, week 3 of footy because of this stupid opening round. We get Hawthorn and Sydney, where I expect the Hawks to get the victory here. Given that it's at the G, it's tomorrow, it's a primetime game. I think the lights will be too bright for Sydney. Sydney got lucky with the first 2 games being at home. Obviously, versus Carlton is borderline bye week. I think Hawks will get it done. But if Sydney do get it done, they're back to serious finals contenders. And, doing it at the MCG also gives them a bit of evidence to suggest that they can get it done now in the bright lights. Adelaide Doggies, by far game of the round. Doggies are flying. Crows are at home. Beat the Pies. Looking really good. I think it'll be a really close one, but I'm going to have to give Adelaide the victory there. I think they'll prove Bulldogs to be too strong, especially given that it is at Adelaide's ground. Got Richmond and Gold Coast. I expect Gold Coast to win this one very easily, so I'm not going to talk too much. And then we've got the hot take, which is GWS and St Kilda, and this is where I expect St Kilda to win. They actually have a decent record at the stadium. What's it called in GWS? Not Manuka Oval, something. But it's at GWS's ground, and you know what? St Kilda needs to get a victory. They must get a victory. Energy Stadium, that's what it is. And they're 2-3 there at Energy Stadium. So their stadium record is not too bad for it to be sort of something to be worried about. So, you know what? Give me St Kilda. I think it'll be close, but I think St Kilda will get the victory here. I think it's much needed because they've got Brisbane next week, and if they lose, they're 0-4, and that's not going to be a good start to their campaign. I think they need a victory here. Freo Melbourne, it's at Optus Stadium. Although Melbourne performed very well last week, I personally don't think it's going to be consistent. So I'm going to give Fremantle the victory here. Got Port against Essendon. Oh, it's a shit game, isn't it? Port at Adelaide Oval. Do you give them the victory? Probably. I think Essendon are worse. That's going to be a rough game to watch. That's Sunday at 3:15. Ugh. And then it gets worse because you got West Coast and North Melbourne, where I do think North Melbourne will get the victory, but this might be West Coast's only chance to win. So, look, they're trying to make the fixture favourable for North Melbourne, giving them all these easy games because next week they do have Essendon. But they could go literally 4-0 because they've got Essendon and then they've got Carlton. That could be a potential 4-0 game. Because then they got Brisbane. Oh, you know what? They could be 5-0. I know what they got next. 6, mate. North Melbourne could go 6-0. They probably lose to Brisbane, let's be honest. But man, that's a fucking favourable fixture if I haven't seen one. You get Port the first round, you smack up at home. Then you get bloody West Coast away, which theoretically should be a victory. It's a winnable game. Then you get Essendon, which is definitely a winnable game. Essendon looks shocking. And then you get Brisbane, and by then they're on a finals hangover. Carlton, first, a Good Friday game. It's probably one of their bigger games of the season. Carlton are not looking too good. And you get Brisbane, and if they lose to the Pies, St Kilda, they get on a good form, and then even they don't have a game this week, so they'll end up versus St Kilda and Pies, where Pies could win, hopefully. They could beat them. They won't, but they could. And then you've got Richmond, which is a beatable game as well. And then what's next after that? Giants. That's where they lose. So, North have a good chance to have a really solid start here. And I can see why fans are excited. But they most definitely do have a very favourable fixture. And those two games, off topic, dog shit. But otherwise, footy's back. And you know what? I'm really excited to see, how the round will match up. And hopefully I can get the St Kilda tip right because, I think I need a hot take. And that's probably the hottest take I can give and afford to give. Maybe Bulldogs would be another one. But I feel like a lot of people are going to be going for Bulldogs on this one in my competition. So that one you can split the middle a bit more than sort of GWS and St Kilda. You really expect GWS to win this, especially given that St Kilda are 2-0. But otherwise, yeah, give me St Kilda. And those are my tips for round 2. Early Brownlow contentions, I've got my 3. Bontempelli, been unbelievable. Obviously, Petrarca's kicked 3 goals in his last 2. Unbelievable. And, my GOAT, Nick Dacos. Excuse me for the bounce. But Nick Dacos has been on a tear. Probably doesn't get votes for the Adelaide game, but he was still racking up the possession. So that's all we can really expect for him. Just wanted to take a moment to thank you guys for tuning into another episode of the Huddle Within podcast. If you do enjoy episodes like this, or this episode specifically, be sure to leave a comment and a 5-star review wherever you do get your podcasts. It'd be also great if you could like and subscribe wherever you do get your podcasts, so we can continue to show this out to people that see sports exactly the way that you do. But without further ado, let's get straight back into it. Okay, so one of the most craziest sporting news off topic to what we normally do have just happened today. The World Baseball Championship, which is essentially like the World Cup, had a major upset. Venezuela win the series. Incredible. Against the US. The US have lots of players in the Major League Baseball competition. They have a player named Aaron Judge, who in big games doesn't seem to deliver. I don't know much about baseball, but I've been seeing that happen lately. Crazy moment. Can't really say too much about it, but go check the highlights. Go check the history of Venezuela. They've never won one before, and I don't think they qualified for the WBC finals ever. Their best, appearance before that was 2009. They got to a semi. So they've won the championship. Very good day for Venezuela. Very good day and a very, well-deserved baseball victory. And, shout out to Venezuela. Shout out to that country. If you know, you know. And then we'll wrap up with some WWE. So a few matches have been confirmed. So it ends up going to be, Cody Rhodes against Randy Orton. But not the Randy Orton that we've been seeing for the past 2 years. We're getting 2009 heel Randy Orton after he just beat the shit out of Cody Rhodes. And we saw the same thing last year, but this was pretty brutal. You had the crazy chair shot to the steps, obviously very choreographed, very safe, but still quite brutal. Cody Rhodes busted wide open, Randy Orton attacking Cody Rhodes, and, he's going for that championship. And, he's coming in as a heel. One of these guys had to be heel. I would have preferred Cody Rhodes, but I'll be happy with Randy Orton in this case because I think seeing Randy Orton as a heel was quite cool. I was happy with Randy as he was, an unserious, fun character towards the sort of end of his career, the tail end. But, we'll take this to the bank because I think it makes it a lot more compelling. And then we had Brock Lesnar find out who his opponent was, and that's none other than the ruler Obafemi. If you don't know who Obafemi is, go watch his shit on Netflix. Go watch his shit on Netflix, but particularly on NXT. Lately, he's been on a tear, having a lot of, blowout matches, killing people, literally. And now he gets an opportunity against Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. And it's just powerhouse on powerhouse. This man is 310 pounds. He's massive. He's got the build. And, he's been squashing people. So this is an opportunity for him to, take on someone like Brock Lesnar, who had an open challenge for someone to take him on at WrestleMania. And they have gone with the ruler, Obafemi, who I think is going to be have a massive future and is a big prospect in WWE. So look out for that. And otherwise, nothing else. Like Becky Lynch attacked AJ Lee. Obviously, CM Punk and Roman Reigns are having a bit of a promo war right now, which isn't, it's been good, but it hasn't been amazing at the moment. But otherwise, WrestleMania is still a month away, so we have a lot more story to build up. And I'm keen to give my WrestleMania predictions when we get there. But, that is pretty much the wrestling news. And that honestly wraps up today's episode of the Huddle Within. Again, some light sporting news today on a pretty busy week, especially highlighted with sort of the corruption. I guess, the corruption of Morocco winning the African Cup of Nations. I would say slightly Venezuela winning the World Baseball Championship, which is massive. That's huge. And on top with, obviously, Premier League almost wrapping up and AFL starting as well. NBA, not too much is happening at the moment. We're getting close to playoffs, but we're at that time where, especially in March, I think people turn onto March Madness, which I'm keen on sort of slowly covering, not too much, but having a look. And then also NFL draft coming up shortly. So March, it's like a really shit month for NBA because we're all waiting for the playoffs and, the season is ending. So there isn't too much that's going on at the moment. We're probably waiting for something controversial. I will mention that they did hold a Board of Governors meeting to potentially expand to the to Vegas and Seattle, which I think really needs to happen, but nothing official yet. But otherwise, again, that's been your sporting news for this week. Thanks once again for tuning in. Again, if you do like the episode, if you've just jumped in for the first time, be sure to subscribe wherever you do get your podcast. Also follow me on my social medias as well. I'm doing a road to super rare Messi and Mbappe, collecting what I like to call Zuru Ballers. I'm getting my nice little card here. I've collected probably more than half of all the players, but I'm after the super rare Messi and Mbappe. And that's a daily challenge that I've been doing. It's, gained a little bit of traction on social media. So I've sort of run with that and, that's been a bit fun. So that's something I also do on my social medias. Be sure to follow that too. And, please try to share the podcast around, get it around to as many people as possible as we continue to try to grow the Huddle within our social medias, doing Zuru Ballers like this, but also being on here, yapping about sports and everything that we love. So, it's been your boy Daniel signing out for this week. I'll catch you guys once again next week for another episode. Cheers. So that's a wrap for this week's episode of the Huddle Within podcast. I appreciate you for tuning in and being part of this community where we go beyond the game and into what really matters. If this episode resonated with you, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who sees sports just the way that we do. And hey, I'd love to hear from you. Connect with me on my social medias, which will be linked below. Send in your thoughts and even be part of a future episode. Until next time, keep that passion alive, stay in the huddle, and remember, it's always deeper than the game. Cheers.